Yeah, bitch! Great movie! Yeah, this was good, I thought. Satisfying, I think, in terms of the sort of ending to Jesse's character. It's kind of on par, I'd say, with sort of like the middle of the road sort of episodes of Breaking Bad. A quick sort of heads up, this is going to have spoilers because, it's been close to a month since this showed up on Netflix. The main thing that sort of struck me, right from the start is you definitely need to see Breaking Bad in order to understand this film. You would be completely lost if you'd not seen the series. But, that series has been out for 6 years now. Yeah, the sort of main criticism I think there has been for this movie is it doesn't really tell us anything we didn't sort of guess. Essentially, a lot of it is just unnecessary. We kind of knew where Jesse ends up at the end of this movie is probably where we kind of guessed he was going to end up. Unnecessary is the word I keep hearing about this movie, but I don't really know what that means, to be honest. When you're talking about a bit of entertainment being unnecessary, well, it's just there for entertainment. It's just a movie. It's just a TV show. It's all unnecessary. When you really think about it, it is not anything that was needed in order for the ending to Breaking Bad to be satisfying and for everything to seem like it had been resolved. But I think that was kind of a given even before we saw it, because if there was anything in it that was needed, it sort of begs the question: well, why wasn't that in Breaking Bad? Why would Vince Gilligan choose to end Breaking Bad where he did, if he has more sort of essential story to tell? We probably did kind of guess that Jesse was going to end up being okay, and the way in which he gets his life sorted out and is able to go off and do other things at the end of this movie, probably would have guessed that. But we don't know exactly how he went about doing that. The situation he was in, it wasn't exactly an easy situation to get out of. He was wanted by the police, was potentially a suspect in the murder of many, many people. And someone like Jesse, he's not stupid by any means, but he's not really smart like Walt was. So it was kind of sort of maybe not a foregone conclusion that he would be able to get out of that situation just by his own means. He would probably need to sort of do a bit of thinking himself. And I think the thing I like about what they did with the flashbacks here, some have said that they're a bit sort of fan servicey, and I can kind of see why they would think that. But at the same time, I think it gives you a sort of window into exactly why Jesse has the sense to figure out exactly how to get out of these situations and what exactly to do. The flashbacks with Todd, they were absolutely necessary, because that was a big sort of missing part, I think, of Jesse's story at the end of that series. I do remember thinking when I watched the end of Breaking Bad, why we stayed away from Jesse as much. That's actually one sort of minor thing I didn't like about the final episode, that it was very much Walt's story. Jesse's only in the final scene, and I think one other scene partway through the episode. It was kind of sort of left in the dark exactly what Jesse had been through all that time. Obviously, what he did after that as well, which is what this movie is about. So I was glad that they went with a few flashbacks with Mike and Walt. I can definitely see why people would think that they're kind of fan service, but I think it's a little bit of a window into it's sort of things that Jesse is thinking about at that point, and it's maybe a sort of window into where he's learnt certain things. I think his whole little plan, I think he had with the two guns that he uses at the end. That's sort of a window into the kind of things he's learned from spending so much time with Walt. Jesse at the start of Breaking Bad would never have thought of something as clever as that. It's a little unclear, actually, with that scene, exactly how much of that he had planned out. Obviously, he was going to show them the crap gun, and he was going to have the other one hidden. But he couldn't have known that guy was going to propose a shootout, and certainly he couldn't have known he was going to tell him where his money was. But, perhaps, Jesse thought, just by lulling them into a false sense of security by showing them the crap gun, he'd be able to just wing it from there. He could use that situation to his advantage in whatever way came about. And I suppose that's kind of sort of the thing you have to do in those kind of desperate situations. You've got to have at least some sort of plan to sort of put you in an easier sort of situation, but then you've got to think on the fly about what to do once, things get started. Comments, I think, about how much weight Todd has put on. I go back and I watch scenes from Breaking Bad with Todd in them, and wow, they are not fucking joking. He really is. He's twice the size now, and it doesn't make much sense because that's supposed to be a flashback. I guess if the actor's put on weight, what can you do? It actually wasn't as much of a shock to me because I've seen that actor in other things since Breaking Bad, so I actually knew that that's the kind of size that he is now. And I don't know what Jesse Plemons has been eating. The only sort of unnecessary flashback I thought was the one at the end with Jane. I didn't quite understand why they did that. Because like even bringing back Jane doesn't seem like fan service to me. It doesn't. I don't imagine many Breaking Bad fans sort of demanding more Jane. I don't know. Maybe they just wanted sort of a bit more of a sort of happy ending for Jesse at the end of the movie, because that was like the one point in the series where he was perfectly happy because he had someone else in his life that was just there for him. I do think that they went out of their way to emphasise that this was a happy ending for Jesse. Although I have heard some people suggest that they're going to do another Breaking Bad film at some point and give us a window into what Jesse did after that. But I think they pretty much just wrapped everything up and everything was completely resolved. They even have the letter to Brock, just to tie up all the loose ends. And of course, emphasising the fact that Walt is definitely dead. As well. I'm glad they did that, to be honest. I was pretty sure he was dead, but I have heard a lot of fans theorising that he wasn't dead. For no more reason than just it ends the speculation now, which I was getting a bit tired of, to be honest, because I didn't really want more Breaking Bad. I felt like that was a very satisfying ending to Walt's story. I didn't want them to keep it going to try and milk it, or keep it... What is the word that I'm looking for? Milking it isn't the word, really. I didn't want them to sort of stretch things out beyond the point where it becomes unrealistic that he would be able to survive for that long, given that he has cancer. But that seemed like a logical point to end it, 2 years after he was diagnosed. And it's interesting, I heard nothing about Bryan Cranston being in this movie, in any of the kind of the publicity leading up to this. And yet there he is, in a flashback, playing maybe not a prominent role, but he plays a prominent role in the scene that he is in. But obviously it is just that one scene. Yeah, it's perhaps them knowing that if they had announced that Bryan Cranston was going to be in it, the media would be all over that, and it would be all anyone talked about in the lead up to it. Oh, what's he going to be doing? Oh, is Walt alive? And all that, and they didn't want that. It's kind of a sort of window into the fact that they're not doing this for publicity. They just want to make a good story. I really admire that about them, because I have to think that the marketing department were sort of pressing for them to announce that Bryan Cranston was in it, because they knew they were going to be on to a winner if they announced that. Perhaps also maybe a little bit like with Endgame, I was thinking earlier this year, that's sort of one movie that doesn't really need to advertise. It doesn't need trailers. People are going to go see it regardless. This Breaking Bad movie is kind of a similar thing. It didn't really need publicity or advertising. Just make people aware that it's coming out and people are going to go see it because it's fucking Breaking Bad. It's also interesting that Skinny Pete is actually a lot smarter than I realised. It's maybe, again, a sort of window into maybe what he's learned from working with Walt. Obviously, he's not worked with Walt as much as Jesse did, but he's learnt one or two things from him maybe about being a little bit clever and trying to deceive the cops, perhaps. Or maybe he just always was that clever, where he just... never got any kind of window into that during the series. Todd Schreiber is an absolutely fascinating character, just this completely psychopathic guy who just thinks nothing of doing all these horrible things, just rolling a body up under a rug and then starts making some soup like it's housework or something. It's really fascinating. I'm really glad that they had a lot of flashbacks with him. Jesse has the worst luck in the world, though. He must have been in that apartment for fucking hours, searching for that money, and right at the moment he finally finds it, two guys show up. Just at that exact moment. If they'd waited like 2 or 3 minutes more, that would probably have been enough time for him to at least load up at least a decent amount of the money and get out of there. But because they showed up just at that moment, there was nothing he could do. I'm also not sure if that welding guy was actually in Breaking Bad, because I remember when he says, I was wondering how long it would take you to remember me. I turned to the guy I was watching movie with. It's like, who's that? Like, I don't remember him. It's like, so I know Vince Gilligan's writing style by that point, so I'm sort of thinking to myself, oh well, we'll probably find out, and of course we do. But maybe he was also in Breaking Bad, and I just don't remember him. I should probably look that up for myself, find out. Not up to the level of Breaking Bad at its absolute best, but probably on par with like sort of medium sort of level Breaking Bad episodes, I would say. I would have liked a bit more. I would like them to have made this into a limited series, maybe like 4 episodes or something, rather than a movie. Obviously, with it being Netflix, they would have just released it all at once. It almost feels like they had a little bit more to tell, but because they decided to make a movie, they were under a little bit of a time constraint, perhaps. Yeah, the whole thing with Brock would have been difficult, actually, because presumably he would have had to have been recast. I would have liked to have actually seen what happened to him if he was all right. Obviously, we assume he is. But yeah, we just get the little shot of the letter which I guess is just a way of them acknowledging that it is a loose end that needed tying up, but they didn't actually want to do anything with him, perhaps. Also, no Hank. Mike gets a flashback, Jane gets a flashback, Walt gets a flashback, but Hank does not get one. And he did spend some time with Jesse, so that they could have worked that in somewhere. I don't know, maybe they just couldn't think of a way that it was relevant to the story. Perhaps it would have just been in there for the sake of having Hank in there. And obviously no Saul, because he has his own show now. And no Skylar, and no Walt Jr., and no Marie. Their role in Breaking Bad was not really relevant to Jesse's role in Breaking Bad, so I guess it makes sense not to have them in there. But yeah, Hank is one that I would like to have seen. It's interesting, it's a good film, and it's part of Breaking Bad, which I've found such a fascinating show for years. There's just so much to say, and yet I'm thinking off the top of my head, there isn't a huge amount to really say about the movie, other than it's just good and it's a satisfying kind of ending. If you haven't seen it, I've probably spoiled most of it for you now at this point, but yeah, I would still recommend you check it out. But don't watch it if you've not seen all of Breaking Bad, because you'll be completely lost. So yeah, that's that, guys. See ya.